I could have your attention. It's 6 o'clock, so we're going to get the meeting started and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with today being September 11th, and we're all here together for a board meeting, I'd like to take a brief moment of silence in remembrance. Thank you. With that, we are ready to get the meeting underway. And item 1.1, the recognition of standout students and staff. We're going to push that to next month and do 2 sets next month. We had some communication errors this month, so we're going to wait till next month so we can have everybody here. So we're ready for approval of agenda and approval of the consent agenda. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda and the consent agenda. Danielle, are you doing a roll call again, please? Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, motion passed 6-0. Item 3, public presentations, hearing of the audience. We don't have anyone signed up tonight to speak. So we will move right on into finance. 4.1, district financial information. Okay. You have anything you need to add there, Marty? Or good? Okay, moving to item 5, department reports. Any questions or comments over department reports? No. Okay, moving to item 6, curriculum and instruction, administrative reports. Any questions or comments over the administrative reports? Carla?
I'd like to give a compliment. Actually, I'm really excited about the GVCs. We've been talking about them for quite a while, as well as the switch to KNEA to Greenbush for the mentorship program. I read about that. I was excited about that. And Title IX, thank you to Ms. Settles and Marty for talking about the getting everybody trained, because we have a lot of new people, especially in mental health and counseling. And that's really critical that they know about those things. And the video refresher, I think, is a great idea for her to prepare for everybody to just kind of reference future times. So thank you. I think that's excellent.
Any other questions or comments on administrative reports? Okay, we're ready for new Board of Education business. 7.1, job description for Director of Student Services.
As we went through job descriptions, one of the areas with student services, this would be a new title. Right now, it's Special Education Director. Senator Donald fills that position. So some of the changes that we made was not only the title, because we wanted to encompass more than just special education, but also this would oversee McKinney-Vento, which is the Homeless Act, and oversee any of the items that would happen with homeless students in our district. We currently have a liaison in that position for that, but this would oversee making sure we're following all the protocols, laws, and everything that we need to do. Also under there is 504. If you're not familiar with 504, 504 is an extension of IDEA or special education. This 504 was added by the federal government to cover anyone whose learning was affected by a disability not covered under IDEA. So if you're talking about sometimes mental health can fall under there. Someone breaks a leg and they can have a temporary 504 to make sure they're not tardy for classes, and we make exceptions for them, those kinds of things as well. And so this position would oversee that as well. And then foster care and children in foster care, they would oversee that and all of those processes as well. So there would be some additional duties that would go under here, and therefore the title change to make it a little more encompassing. It's still special education, but it's these other pieces as well.
Need approval for that? I would move that we approve the job description change from SPED director to student services director.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the job description change and incorporate Director of Student Services. Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes. Motion passed 7-0. Moving to 7.2, update on non-resident open enrollment policy.
Are you ready? Okay, so the Kansas legislature passed a new law last year in regards to enrollment of non-resident students. To put it simply, currently, the districts have the ability to review students prior to them coming in and exclude the acceptance of some students based upon a number of factors, some that you'll see in here later. The new law basically says that districts are to allow any student to come in, and if they were to come in and you were at capacity, that random selection processes have to be used. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through this policy a little bit. Today is an overview. It's to kind of get you the information, answer questions that you have as we kind of go through this. Next month would be first reading. We also have to have a public hearing on this particular policy to allow input from the public. I'm thinking right now we would do that in October, prior to our meeting in October, to give people a chance to comment on this. Then you would do first reading in October, second reading in November. It gives us a month of leeway because as you know, or experienced with me, we probably need a little leeway in case something gets missed. So with that in mind, this has to be in place before the 1st of January. The policy does. How the policy, like our capacities, all those kinds of things, do not need to be in place until May. So we can talk more about those, work with building principals, administration on what should our capacities be. All right, so let's just talk about this just a little bit. You'll see all the definitions that go with it, enrollment of those. So right here, the superintendent or designee shall develop recommendations on capacity and student teacher ratios for each school building or program serving students in grades 9 through 12. Such recommendations be based on limit to the following. So you'll see, I'm not going to read it all to you, but you see there the different pieces that we have to have in place. Some of the things that are interesting is that you're really looking at capacity based upon grade level band and not based upon some other factors. So for instance, if you say in second grade, we can take 180 students, then you're going to open it up to 180 students. If we had within those 180 students, a student came in with special needs who needed a specific program and that program was full, we could not exclude that student based upon that program being full. It has to be by the grade band. If that does that make sense when I explain it that way? But that's the law. So at the high school, it talks about programs. So more so at the 9-12 level, it's about what's your student teacher ratios in English language arts that you want to have, and all the way through all of your programs. I know Mr. Penrose has already started on this and sent me a document. We can talk about that as we go forward as well, but so it's different at that level. Any questions on this so far?
The board decided a few years ago that we were gonna have class, like kindergarten was gonna be capped at 18.
Mhm.
First grade. How will that affect those numbers?
It will be affected. So if you're above 18 right now in there, if you said this is where our target is or where we want to be, and you're at 20 now, and you're saying this is what we're putting as our guideline, then you're going to have some kids not come back for the following year. And if you are an out-of-district student who was here previously, does not guarantee you a spot the following year under this law. So it's a fairly dramatic change. Siblings are to be given preference. So if there is a sibling who is selected through the random process, then their siblings are given preference through this as well. You'll see this as we go. So let me move on just a little bit. You'll see here on or before May 1st of each year, we'll present recommendations concerning capacity and student teacher ratios to the board. Those capacities aren't listed in the policy, but they will be presented to you, as it says, by May 1st. I know some of the guidelines that are being used is 20+1. So what that would mean is to say student teacher ratios of 20-1 in kindergarten, then 21 in first grade, 22 in second, 23 in third. And that's kind of a rule of thumb that some are using out there. Or the district could say, we're going to base it upon research, and research says that we know that 18 is that ideal number based upon studies. So you could do one of two things. If you had capacity, you could add teachers or a classroom. If you didn't have capacity, then it would just be cut off. And when I say capacity, I mean building room capacity.
So in the past, if we had a class, let's say a second grade class that was small, we had 8 classes. So second grade may only have 15 kids in the class, but our third grade class may have 25 kids in a class because we had 8 classes that they used to fill. We changed that up a couple of years ago. And so we may only have 5 second grade, but we could have 8 fourth grade classes so that we could manage the numbers better that way.
Right. What this would do is say that if you established that you would have a ratio of 20-1 in, and Pete, I'll go back, was it second grade? I think you said was like smaller. Then in that second grade, you would have to accept any out-of-district student that applied until you met that capacity. And if there were a number of students who applied beyond that capacity, then everyone is selected who is a non-resident student is selected through random selection.
If we know we have 8 second grade classrooms available and we wanted to put 22 kids in each class, then that would be our capacity.
Yes.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah. And so if you had those students that were 25, then you would, on the other hand, be telling some of those non-resident students they could not come.
As far as after are already enrolled as an out-of-district student, say the following year when they want to re-enroll, can we still use any of our old guidelines as far as behavior, grades?
Yes. Good question. Let me scroll down to that. And it's right here. So as we look at this, and we talk about eligibility and CASA, all those things, but let me just kind of summarize, and I'll scroll down here where you can see these bulleted items, which is probably what people are most interested in. You cannot deny a student enrollment based upon these factors. Now, if a student is under expulsion or long-term suspension from another district in Kansas, you don't have to take them. That would be the exception. But regardless of what their grades were at a previous district, their attendance was at a previous district, so on and so forth, if they're selected through your random selection process, you have to take them. After a year, and they're in your system, if these bulleted items apply to that student, then you can deny them enrollment for the following year. So you'll see there a 90% attendance rate. And again, you can change some of these if you wish. That's why we're reading it the first time. If there was false information given, they're not a state resident, they're under suspension or expulsion from any Kansas district. The student has had 3 or more out of school suspensions in the current year, minus suspensions based upon their disability through a manifestation determination. And the student has been given a long-term suspension or expulsion by the district in the current school year, then they can be denied enrollment for the following year. And then we're to give them notice. And you can see that I changed my mind. I said May 1st, and then I put June 1st. So again, this is the first read through. And so you'll see the sentence in there as well. Meeting one or more of the following criteria shall automatically be not in good standing and may be denied continued enrollment on any of those we just covered.
The question I have is, when we're gonna be developing our capacities, are we also going to take into consideration the capacity that we have in the building? Because if we grow financially, we grow as well. We would fill the buildings that previously sit, partial wing empty, and then that would bolster our ability to handle funding things.
Right. So if we said, if you added another classroom, for instance, LIS has that
Wing.
unoccupied 6th grade wing, for instance. So if you decided, okay, we want to add capacity or we want to add classrooms. If it was 20 students, you added $5,000 a student in state aid. My math says that's 100,000, right? And so that would pay for that particular classroom. However, remember, the students who come may come to you with lots of different challenges and lots of different needs, which may cause you to spend significant amount more money on particular student and their needs. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying from a financial standpoint, that's something to consider as well.
So having said some of that, this could be kind of on a year by year basis, because if they're accepted one year and the next year is a larger class size and we're over capacity, they could potentially not, or would they be accepted?
That's correct. So if, some of the districts around us are experiencing significant more growth, Based or Linwood, for instance, some of those with resident students who are moving in. So their take on this is a little different, even than our own. So with that, let's say that we had a new development come into Lansing and we added 100 students to our school district. You're correct. If we're at capacity, some of those non-resident students who were here previously could be bumped out for resident students.
I have a couple questions, Marty. You say the priority is with siblings, so that's going to be each year too, or are they going to kind of have a
Yeah,
preference?
let's find that exact language here. So can I jump back into here, just right here? So except as otherwise specified, who've previously been accepted for enrollment shall be allowed to continue enrolling the district as specified above. They don't have to resubmit new applications. So once they're selected through random selection the first time, unless they don't meet those criteria, they can continue to be enrolled unless our capacity is met, and then we bump them out.
Okay. And then a different part of that would be at LHS at the high school, you have a high school junior that is struggling, and the junior to senior year, if they don't meet any of those three criteria, what will we do? Or will it just be case by case?
You'd follow your policy. Is what you would do. Otherwise, we would become inconsistent, is what I would say. And I think you open yourself up to some issues if you're inconsistent in that. Now, again, if the student would have an IEP of 504, one of those, then, you know, that student's individual consideration would be given based upon that. I want to find your previous question. Right here it is. So if any sibling of a non-resident student who was accepted to enroll and attend the school in the district with priority given when the non-resident student is first accepted, if necessary, at any other time the district considers transfer applications.
So if you had three siblings and one did not meet that three criteria, two siblings may be able to stay, but the one maybe with behavior issues.
We are to give, with the siblings, we are to give them priority, meaning that all three could enroll, but if two of them were to struggle and not meet our criteria, one could stay and two would go. At the end of the year, you'll see military preferences given as well. When they're able to come in, we're able to do that. Any children in the custody of DCF are also obviously if they're in the home of a non-resident student who transfers to the district. So similar to a sibling situation is what you're talking about there. Right here, it talks about any non-resident student who has a parent or person acting as a parent employed by the district is permitted to enroll and attend the district as if the student is a resident of the district while the parent or person acting as parent remains employed. So employees' children have preference as well. And you'll see the out of state, and then any child who is experiencing homelessness, I experience homeliness, but homelessness shall be permitted to enroll and attend the school district of origin or the school district of residence. So school district of origin within homelessness means if a student was, for example, attending Lansing and then their homelessness caused them to reside or have temporary residency outside of the Lansing district, then they have the option to choose to continue to go to Lansing to school.
At your welcome, Marty, we had a certain family that was actually residing in Wyandotte County. Their students had started here and then they moved to Wyandotte County, and they had the babysitter where the kids launched from each morning, and it was kind of a transportation issue. Are we still working on that then? It's kind of not combined in this yet.
As far as transportation, the one thing it does say in here is that the district does not provide transportation to non-resident students. So in this policy, that's what's stated, is that they don't provide that. Now, you can put into your policy what you wish to put into your policy, but this was written based upon law, what the current law is.
You do recall that conversation?
I do.
You're right.
I don't want to
Right.
talk about it too much since we
Exactly.
might identify someone
Oh,
with
sure,
that.
sure, absolutely. Okay, so, but still, we're still reading through it and
Mhm.
future. Okay.
Any other questions anyone has? So, kinda back through. And so here's the transportation of non-resident students I have up on the screen. The district, by virtue of being a receiving school district of a non-resident student, shall not be required to provide transportation unless otherwise required to do so by state and or federal law as a related service to the student's IEP. Accommodation of 504. If space is available on district vehicles, they may assign non-resident students an in-district bus stop to and from which transportation may be provided by the district for resident students. This district shall ensure the transportation of non-resident homeless students is provided comparably to that of housed students. So as a hypothetical, the situation that you described says that if there was room and that was already a stop and they were there at that stop, we could choose to transport.
I think we would just need to make it clear if we did that, if it was under the 2.5, they still have to pay and then decide on the above 2.5, whether they would pay or not, if they're not resident.
I believe, and I will verify this, but I believe if they're above the 2.5, under this law with these accommodations, we would actually get state
For them,
funding for them.
that would be my only, but otherwise, yeah, especially if they want to pay.
Any other questions or comments?
Did you say we're gonna try to do the hearing prior to the October meeting? That would be great, I think, on the same day.
I'm throwing it out there for you guys. If you want to do it, we could have the hearing in October and do first reading on the October regular meeting agenda of the policy. And that's one thing I would ask, if there's something you saw, just at least initially, that you would want changed prior to first reading, we can do that. And then coming back in November with second reading.
Okay.
Or we could wait until November to have our hearing before second reading, but I think probably would be more appropriate before first reading. So if there was some reconsideration you wanted to make after hearing public comment, that, you know, it's still first reading.
I think it's good to do it October prior to the regular meeting.
We have our combined meeting with the city.
Oh, that's October also.
I think so, October 19th. But
Work
That's-
session.
that'd be
That's
good
a work
information to know.
session.
That's a separate.
That's a
That'll
separate
be
meeting.
on the city council day though, so it's like a Thursday. I think.
Oh, okay, so you go to their
Yeah, we go
space
there.
that day. Okay. So we're over there.
Yep.
And that'll be after this hearing? Will it be after the public hearing?
It's a different day.
It's a different. So you have.
It's October 19th.
Oh, no, I mean, the date is after the public hearing, because they would want to know that too, probably. That'd be good information.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
either
exactly.
one way or
Yes.
earlier or after for a public hearing.
I believe our next meeting is October 11th, and then the meeting with the city would be the 19th, October 9th.
Yep.
Dang it. 9.
Okay, last call for questions. Not, we're ready to move to 7.3, first reading for draft GAAP, emergency safety intervention documentation for USD 469 notification for parent/guardian.
Sandra is here if I start to struggle here, but basically what this is that anytime we have a safety intervention, which would include things like seclusion or restraint of a student who was a danger to themselves or others, our reporting form needed to be changed in policy, and that's what this is. This form reflects the new requirements of us on what needs to be reported. If we were to have an event that required seclusion restraint. You'll see descriptions of incidents, what was done to try to de-escalate before We went into a seclusion restraint issue, description of events leading up, and any medical care, if there had to be medical care. And then you'll see IEP 504 or BIP. So this is just updated to meet current requirements.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on this?
No.
Are you gonna make a motion then? Sure.
I would like to make a motion to approve the draft, or not make it a draft, but the proposal of GAF emergency safety intervention documentation.
Second. So I have a motion and a second to approve the policy GAAF emergency safety intervention documentation. Yes.
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 Motion passed 7-0. And moving to 7.4, second step curriculum challenge.
So we had a request for review of textbook instructional material or media center material from Mr. Jonathan Dowdy. And it involved the second step curriculum that we teach in the elementary and middle school. The board has that challenge. There are some personally identifiable parts to the challenge for students and staff. And so I'm not putting it up on the board without it being retracted. But in specifically in reference to grade 7, lesson 11, a lesson on I want to get the title right. Gender-based harassment was one that was talked about. And then some others in regards to bullying, grade 7, lesson 11. That's the same one. And then grade 7, lesson 9. In regards to sexual harassment or bullying and social media in regards to sexual content. So that's the challenge that's out there. The challenge was received quite some time ago and then was brought back up to our attention. And so we have followed so far. I know that Brooks has met with the parent and had discussions about it. I believe the superintendent had met with the parent and there wasn't resolution. So our policy states that it comes to the board and then the board can choose to either send it on to a committee or the board can choose to say we consider it resolved. It's up to you on how you want to proceed with that. As I look at it, I think we have a policy that allows for opting out. I do think there's an opportunity for us to provide more information for parents. I know Mr. Jenkins in his monthly reports has been putting a list of topics that will be covered in second step coming up that month for parents. And I know now has added a note saying that they could, opting out is always an option on particular lessons. I think the ability to see if there is more information that we can put out there for parents to see what's in those lessons could be beneficial as well if they were going to choose to opt out of a particular lesson, because Now what we're going to put out there is, it just basically says, here's the objective of the lesson, here's the topic, here's what we're going to be teaching. It doesn't go into specific details. I honestly have to find out whether or not it's allowable for us to put much more out there, just because of copyright and Second Steps program, and how much they would allow us to put out there for people to look at, so people weren't stealing their lesson plans or things like that. So that's where that's at now. So from my standpoint, I would say to you that I would strongly consider looking at it as an opt-out situation for parents, and give us an opportunity to see if we can provide more information in Mr. Brooks's monthly messaging and updates that go out to parents, as well as with our GVC documents on the web, that parents could access them there as we continue to add information to that GVC format online. But that's where I'm at. If you wish to send it on to committee, we're prepared for that. We asked for volunteers for that, and we appreciate it. I know some of you helped spread the word on that as well. The last I saw, we were at 116 people. I'm thinking we're probably more like 130 range right now. So from that group, 2 people are randomly selected to serve on that committee. Your policy states who's going to be on there from the district, and then 2 randomly selected community members. And from a random selection, I know we have them in a Google sheet. I mean, it actually has, Google has a random selector in there. So we would utilize that in order to select who those 2 people would be.
Marty, you had offered that we could see some videos. I believe that we weren't able to access those with the information that you sent us prepared for this meeting. Could we take a look at some?
If you want to take the time to look at one, I can pull one up. I need to go get my computer.
Okay.
And I'll need Chris's assistance to hook it up. We can do that.
I guess I should wait till Marty comes then. I had a few comments.
You want us to continue with discussion without you, Marty, or just wait?
Okay.
We can hold up.
Have a work session about it. at some point in time.
Can we do one opt-in instead of an opt-out?
If it's an opt-out, a parent may not see that. If it's an opt-in, they have to look at it. The same with the survey. I think we should make that clear too, that when I read since you're back in here, Marty, if it's okay, if I went on the challenge, it wasn't just one specific video or one specific lesson. He had asked for the whole second step SEL for 6, 7, 8 to be reviewed because of different items throughout the lessons. And also things with the second step curriculum. I don't see Miles here. I would like to ask Miles if our other curriculums that are purchased, if they can be changed at any time. Because second step allows their curriculum to be changed at any time without any notice given to the districts which have purchased the curriculum. And then that would be no notice again to the families, like they have removed some controversial items already because of some districts opting out of the whole second step curriculum. So they've already removed some, but they also have the option to add in other material at different times. And so that was one of the issues. Yeah.
You could also create your own curriculum.
Well, yeah, any
Yeah.
school in the state of Kansas can use their
And-
own, or they can purchase one.
Yeah.
So, and I did notice, I reviewed all of the lessons for 6th, 7th, and 8th. And the videos, all of that included. One other aspect in there was that it had an option where you could give a parent a code to view some of the lessons, but I would have liked to ask, or want to ask, how many times that can happen, how difficult that is,
Mhm.
but because if a parent is going to choose to opt out or opt into a lesson, these are very generic explanations of what the lesson may portend. And they look great, but until you really dive into each lesson and look at the videos and the activities that can go with that, it really doesn't give a very good, description for the parent. And I think that would be something that would be good to have. It's not there right now.
So, let's start back here, kind of reading this. What about harassment, warm up?
What's the difference between sexual harassment and gender harassment?
I noticed too in the education part of this, or geared towards the educator, it is recommended that during these sensitive lessons, and it was the same for 6th, 7th, and 8th, when these delved around harassment and bullying, that since they were sensitive topics, they recommended a letter be sent to the parents describing the lesson before these particular ones, and I don't know if that was done or not for these individuals, but it was recommended by second step themselves. So I think
Okay.
even they recognize that there could be issues.
So this is some of the lesson coming up prior to the video, talking about stereotypes, gender stereotypes, in regards to male, female. Write one or two gender stereotypes that you've heard. How harmful do you think it is? How might it hurt someone in a group it doesn't fit? And then you'll see the definition there.
And I do have a question, Marty. I mean, really, what is the difference between the gender-based harassment and sexual harassment? When that first sentence says gender-based harassment is aggression against someone based on their sex.
Right. Sexual harassment is typically going to involve things like quid pro quo, meaning this for that. Oftentimes it's obviously an imbalance of power that's involved with that. And you'll see sexual harassment oftentimes tied to the workplace or employment more so than to a school setting, although sexual harassment can occur between a staff member, student, or anytime there's that imbalance of power. All those things. But so your gender-based harassment here, as it's described, could be a stereotype. You throw like a girl, if someone would say that, or any of those would be more of a gender-based situation than necessarily sexual harassment. And
You have
you're
painted nails, a boy having painted nails. or
Right.
Something.
Right, and so there would be those kinds of things that would be related to it. So that would be your biggest differences.
believe they added to one of the definitions too, and I'm trying to find it. Yeah, the second step curriculum actually added a sentence to the, like, to the real,
Can-
the actual definition.
Can you
for
read
it.
that? Can you read that to us, Amy?
I'm looking, try to
Okay.
find it right here. So they kind of have their own definition of it. Let's see, 3, page 4. Sorry. I had notes written down on certain pages, so I need to find that page. real quick.
That's a good point too. If you're saying they have their own definition, is it a legal definition? I mean, is it just the
Well,
the
that was
learning
something
objective
that
of
the
the
parents
class?
brought up. Let's see. So. They added that it's the under harassment, that they added that it's serious enough to create an unsafe environment and is a form of discrimination, which is kind of doesn't really go together. Not saying those things are good. I'm just saying that they added that
Right,
as part of
define
their
it.
viewpoint of it. And again, I believe the parent wasn't upset with the whole premise of anti-bullying and anti-harassment. It was just the way that it was expressed in these lessons that they had, you know, and I can see that. I watched these and I looked at the different things and I think it could be done without these. I mean, we'd also have the option of removing some of these or sending these to be looked at by the committee or having them opt in for those sensitive lessons, not opt out, because that requires a parent to actually look at that. I'm guilty of it. I was guilty of it as a parent when you're getting things coming home for 3 kids a day or a month or a week that you miss things. Maybe I was a bad parent, I don't know. But when you have to opt in, you have to look at it and you know, and you say, yes, I'm okay with this. Since they did suggest sending a letter, I don't know. Those are just some options that were going around in my head. And then,
So,
Marty, do you happen to remember when the SEL or when the second step expires? I want to say we've got about 6 more months of it or a year.
I would give you the wrong date if I tried to. give you
Yeah,
the
I know.
exact
I'm
date
just
right
off the top of my head.
so currently, right now, every individual family has the ability to opt out their child on every lesson.
now. Mhm. Yes,
So
Correct.
currently, they have the ability to take their child's learning in their hands.
Well, I think one of just to play devil's advocate, one of the complaints was that there wasn't an accurate description or availability for the parent to review it to make that decision. That was what was based in because it is hard. Me and Marty were having issues sharing this to look at because we don't have a textbook anymore like we did 15 years ago, 10 years ago, where your child brings home the textbook. Okay, everything's licensed. You can only access these. You can't, it's hard for the parent to look at. So that's why they suggested that a review team look at this and maybe have parents involved to see, hey, is this what our families want? Is this what we want? Is this the type of curriculum we want for SEL? And that's what I read. I don't know if that's what you took from if you read all of the challenge.
I looked at it as currently every family has the ability to choose what's best for their child on opting them out of it or leaving them in it.
But did you see the part why he mentioned?
I did, but at the same time, the individual has the ability to opt their child out. Another person might want their child to go through that lesson.
And that could be an
that's-
opt-in.
And that's their complete choice. So my sense on it right now is each family has their ability to opt their child out of that lesson or that area if they don't like it. So currently, each individual parent or group of parents that's over that child in our district has the ability to say, nope, I don't want them to learn that, or I'm fine with that currently.
So
I guess what I was saying is they can't see what the lesson.
They don't know what they're opting out of. I
If,
think is the
if
point.
they, okay, but the point that we have now is, now we're going to the point where Brooks is putting in there what we're gonna cover every month. And if they have a question about that topic, I'm pretty sure that Brooks or Marty would go into in-depth with them. If they have an issue with gender-based harassment, reach your principal and say, what's this lesson about? May I see some of the content? If they don't get satisfaction from their administrator, they could go to Marty, but it's one of those things that at the end of the day, if they don't feel they have enough information to make that, that's their full right to say, I don't want my kid to go to that lesson.
But then you have second step saying that there are letters that should go out to parents. You know, there are letters that should go out to parents regarding some of these sensitive areas within this curriculum. So.
So an opt-in instead of an opt-out fixes that?
At least the letters need to go out.
I think there's some parents out there that don't know that they can challenge it also.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what you know, and what we're talking about tonight. I've had parents tell me that when I've been out walking around. So.
Well, look at it.
How do we educate, Marty? How do we educate the parents that for opting out?
Yeah. You know, I think, again, I think in Brooks's monthly emails, and he and I had this conversation to make sure that, and he's making sure that, that statement's in there, that you can opt your child out of a lesson at any time. So I know not everyone reads everything we send out. But it is our best way to try to communicate with everyone in the masses is to and to try to target it toward those parents that would be most likely to read it. So middle school parents coming from the middle school principal, not a district wide one, but and then, you know, one of the things that were required, just like surveys, we just had to do for my Sabers, we just had to do an opt-in for parents to do the My Sabers. And then all of those are on our website. So you can go and see what questions there are on there, as well as there's the letter that goes to parents on there. There's all of those as well. So those are out there as well. So any parent who was going to have a child take that survey got an email from us saying to opt in. Our response rate was fantastic, by the way, at least initially on that in comparison. A lot of times what you'll get is, as we talk to surrounding districts like on My Sabers or whatever, you'll get about a 30% response rate. Just based upon what I saw today, I think we got a higher rate than that, but that's kind of the challenge you have is, will they, if we send it, will they open the email? Will they read it? And then will they respond to whatever it is? So we just try to bombard them with as much information as we can and hope something catches their eye.
And that was an opt-in, and you got a good response like that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say that we probably, based on today, I would say that we had around 40%
Okay, that's
people
pretty good.
respond,
Mhm.
which means 60% are still out there in the wind. I would say of those, I saw very few no's on the spreadsheet that said, no, I don't want my child to participate. But again, that was the initial wave, and we'll continue to beat the bushes
Okay.
to try and get as many responses as we possibly can.
I think some of those too, one of the reasons for the legislation and some things that I've heard actually regarding some back and forth on this was those surveys that are given, the companies like Second Step that turn around and sell the curriculum to the districts use that. So to base, like Greenbush would use that, or other ones, or Second Step to then turn around and sell these. So that's kind of the reason why some of that pushback was. But another thing too, besides just saying that it's up to the parents, they can opt out if they like, which I think is great that there is that option. One of the issues that I think we need to talk about a little bit is that this was it's nothing that is Marty's fault, but this was put up months and months ago, and it was going to be reviewed over the
January
summer to see whether we were
2023.
even going to keep this curriculum, and it didn't happen. And that wasn't Marty's fault. He was coming on. So the parent, I just want to make that clear, was not trying to just upend and rip everything out and say, hey, take this. They just wanted the entire program for the 6th, 7th, and 8th to have a look, have someone else review it, get a look, get some family input. I don't think to me, I don't think that's unreasonable with something like this. There's been a lot of, it's not just here. This program itself has been pulled from many districts across the country. So there's, there's something to this. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have the SEL. There's just a lot of different ways to do it. My point of view recommendation would be to have a committee look at it, get their input. I'm not saying we're going to pull it all. I'm not going to saying we're going to use a different company, but I know that I believe that at least we're a year into the contract with Second Step. I want to say we're nearing the end of the second year. I think it would be worth looking at, and in the meantime, at the minimum, I would say opt in for these sensitive lessons. It's pretty easy to select those on there and then opt out for the rest, or we could pull it all until the review's completed. I don't know. I believe that these harassment ones, if I remember right, were around 7 to 11 in the area of all 3 years. The units, I mean, so I don't know where that falls with the calendar right now, where the students are at.
This topic won't be covered for some time yet.
Okay.
I'm looking
So
at Mr. Jenkins because he and I
Mhm.
talked about that.
Yeah.
It's not till around Christmas time. Is that correct, Mr. Jenkins? Yeah,
That's what I was kinda thinking,
November-ish.
that it
Yeah,
was
so
still
we got a little
November.
time yet.
I don't know
before
what
we need to
everybody
do
else
that.
thinks, though.
You want me to go ahead and play the video?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
I hijacked the video.
How about volume? I can start it.
This is it, I just unplug this and it's gonna pick it up with my phone.
Okay. Ready?
So there's this boy that's in our class and the girls just tease him about hanging out with the girls instead of hanging out with the boys. So they always telling him that he's gay and messing with him all the time, and that makes him very upset.
There were a couple guys who rode my bus and just spent the entire time throwing around like homophobic slurs and talking about how much they like hated and feared and felt disgusted by gay people.
When I came to school in September, there was a lot of conversations. People would ask their friends like, oh, is that a boy or a girl? Or like, what is that boy wearing? Or like, is that boy wearing a skirt? Just really ignorant things that I found to be really offensive and really hurtful. It made learning very difficult, and it made just walking from class to class very difficult, and staying happy and keeping my grades up difficult.
People would just call me like gay and like names and stuff, and people would just like pick on me and just left me out of like things, you know. I was feeling really depressed.
I felt really bad for the person they were talking about, and it kind of just made me feel like, wow, these people are really mean, you know?
It just creates fear and it just makes people want to hide.
It lets people know that school is a place where there is this type of judgment and where people are going to judge you for how you express yourself and are going to talk about it and are going to perpetuate these stigmas. And I don't think that's okay at all.
It's hard to see people who might be different to be picked on like that. I like to see different because that's what makes us human.
Yeah, I'll plug it back in. So.
So in the Kansas vision for education, the outcomes to be measured, of course, are social and emotional growth measured locally. So when we deliver social and emotional learning pre-K through 12 to our district, is the Savers the only vehicle that we use to measure our social and emotional growth of our students? The My Savers, is that it?
So My Sabers is more of a survey that would identify if we have some students in need and in need of help that we haven't identified or targeted, that we could provide some services to, more so than a measurement of growth from a social emotional learning standpoint. It's very subjective and very hard to measure when you talk about growth. What we know is that when we talk about our BIST program, and we're talking about behaviors and students who are there, and one of the really large components of BIST is to talk about what skills a student might be learning that's or missing, that's causing them to behave in a certain way. And then what we bring to that is that if the student has anger management, let's say, for instance, child can't control their anger, somewhere along the line, or it's been an ongoing challenge for that student to be able to control themselves when they get angry. So part of what we do through our BIS process is not only do students have consequences for behavior and things like that, but also how do we teach you strategies for anger management? How do we teach you how to control it when you start feeling out of control? And so that's a very large component to BIST, is that as well. So that to me would be also an SEL thing, a social emotional growth thing would be some of those. Conflict resolution. We have students who yell, scream, get in each other's face, or can we solve a problem? And that requires a skill set to solve a problem. So as we either use BIST or we use lessons from here, we try to teach them that as well. But to have an objective measure of saying you were here and now you're here, that's a difficult thing to do. And I know one of the things the Kansas State Department of Education has programs that are out there that they recommend as programs for their objectives and standards as model programs. Second Step is one of those. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't provide more information, or there's some lessons that maybe are just too controversial for our community or whatever else. That's for someone to decide other than me. But when I guess from that standpoint, that would be my answer to your question. And if it says that, they aren't giving us tools or suggestions on, by golly, you can measure this 100%. This is where the student was, and this is where they are now from a social emotional standpoint. Because we'll have some who will go through therapy, some who will do that as well. And I'm talking about extreme cases, but for the bulk of our students, we're talking about how do we help you function in some of these kind of universal things that we would all agree are things. Don't bully a kid.
So
Don't do
actually,
those things.
we're kind of, we're collectively training everybody. And it's kind of like we're casting the net wide, and whoever needs it, we're just kind of getting the message out there.
Yeah.
Okay, and so BIST and SEL are kind of nested together.
So, BIST isn't the SEL curriculum. However, the strategies that are embedded with BIST are going to cross over into SEL when a student's lacking the skill in order to act or react in an appropriate way.
Right. I just wanted to say one more thing and just kind of echo what you had said before, Amy, and I was thinking about this afternoon. It was January 2023, 8 months ago, when there was a parent that came with a concern. And I don't think that we provided as a board, as a district, with the right customer service the can got kicked down the road, and then we have a new superintendent. And I think that that's kind of a failure on our part. I believe things should totally be solved at the lowest level, and this is certainly no different than that. Do we have an SEL kind of lead teacher per each department at LMS or in any of the schools? Is there somebody that's kind of like, hey, you're the person that if any kind of question comes up with SEL, we'll bounce it off you, or does it go straight to the superintendent? Or during the PLDC or PLCs, do they talk about, hey, this is this week's lesson for that? Question here.
Mr. Jenkins, would you care to talk about the middle school?
I did have one point I wanted to add, if that's okay. Like I said, we're not diving into all of the challenge because of the either evaluative or personal identifying information, but I do think this one part that was included is important because the challenge refers to KSDE and their objectives with SEL. And it's to practice strategies for accepting and respecting similarities and differences, model respectful ways to respond to other point of views, compare and contrast different points of view respectfully. So what the challenger was saying is that, however, he says, however, rather than accepting, respecting, and responding to others' different points of views, the second step curriculum shields students from the very idea that there may even be different points of view. Worse, by implication, the second step curriculum teaches that points of views different than those presented within the curriculum are wrong, because they are then labeled aggressions that create unsafe environments. So he's referring to like the KSDE objectives of SEL and then how this program does it. My take on the whole challenge wasn't against SEL in general or the goals or ideas of it, but just again, the program. So I thought that was important to know.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments on it before we?
I'd like to make a motion. Make a motion to have the curriculum reviewed. And that we change the parent opt-out to parent opt-in process.
Second.
Is there any discussion? There's a motion on the table to send the second step curriculum to the review committee and change it from a opt-out to an opt-in. And there's a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have discussion. I believe that we have already paid for this curriculum once again. We paid for it and we, I believe that there's been a certain level of success, but we do need to be, curriculum companies want to make money. They do. So I'll just state that. But there are some tweaks. I did myself the last academic year. I went in and I sat into some of the SEL classes at different developmental levels. And I just thought that some things were kind of confusing. It's like, okay, is anything wrong? Or because it was perspective, which I get that, recognizing other people's perspectives and respecting that. But I get that SEL, I get that BIST kind of bounces up with it, but it's I just feel like we've already purchased this curriculum. So if we watch it and just kind of methodically take a look at it, over this academic year, I'm all for that because you know what? We purchased it. So following through with the purchase and then looking at the next time if we re-up it, I mean, that's kind of my opinion at this point. But I feel like we failed the parent that brought this up last January of 2023. I don't believe or at least it didn't get to the board. And you know what? That's good because something should be deferred straight back to the administrative level. That's where it should appropriately be. But for it to come up to the board, this should be solved somewhere else. That's my take on this.
The only question I have about this is, would you consider separating your motion into two motions? One to sending to curriculum and then two to have an opt-in versus opt-out form.
Sure.
Okay,
I think we have to move on this motion, and to do that, we would have to.
I'm for an opt-in form if that solves it, because then it directly puts it in the hands of the parent.
And that's where. I'm
And
going.
I would differ because I believe an opt-out form puts it in their hands as well. But if an opt-in form forces every single parent to read it, then okay. But I would agree that the curriculum's in place and that the parents have an ability to choose each child. So I personally wouldn't send it to reviews. That's why I'd ask if you would separate them, but I understand.
And the videos, I mean, not being, and I totally get that. There's a copyright element. So it's like, hey, if we can't see them, we can't see them. But that really does put the parents and all stakeholders in a blind place because we don't know, because it's not like a CD that you finite keep and you put in the machine. It seems like it's changing virtually whenever they want it to be changed.
I think that's why the parent recommended that maybe a review committee could look at that with parental input. So because of that aspect. And then the other thing, I just don't want to lose out on the part where they can amend the curriculum at any point. Second step, I'd really be curious to know with our other curriculum. I don't know if you might have missed that part, Marty, on whether other curriculum companies can change those like they can. I don't.
That's kind of the power and the quandary with online curriculum is like if you had a textbook and you're on a 7-year rotation, that textbook's not going to change for 7 years. With an online curriculum, one of the attractive parts of an online curriculum is it does change. That if something were to change, that would be, so if you had a modern history or whatever it may be. So that's, like I said, that's part of the problem and part of the solution.
Well, and with that, I just would like to make a quick, I mean, I'm trusting just the extra detail Brooks has went into providing the lesson plans on the newsletter. I mean, I'm a parent of a middle schooler, so I see all the stuff he's putting out. And with the ever changing, it could possibly ever change. I would hope that Brooks's SEL team is monitoring it before those lessons do come up to see any changes from the previous time that they had used it. And if there is changes, then they're reviewing them as well. With the opting in and opting out, personally, to me, if you're involved in your child's life and you care about what's going on with them at school, it's one for the other, in my opinion. I do understand where you're saying the opt-in makes you look at it. But if you have, personally, if you have any inkling to look into what they're learning on a daily basis, whether it's opt-in or opt-out, you're going to know what it is. Because we get lesson plans daily of everything for the whole week. If there's a question over anything, like Aaron had brought up, I'm sure if it was a quick phone call to Mr. Jenkins, that he would get the information we wanted. And I'm putting my trust in the educators at the building first. And like Carla said, we did drop the ball. It should have been taken care of a long time ago. But with that being said, this originally started in January. And we're in September. And I'm sure it's been out. I mean, people have known about it. And I have not got any other negative responses based on the curriculum. I have received some positive, but not any other negative
This,
on this one.
I,
And that's, I know a lot of times people send it to certain board members, not everybody, but personally, that's where I'm at as a parent of a middle schooler who's been through this.
were you
And it's
able
currently
to
in it.
see Were you able to see the videos on your child's?
I didn't go in and try to see them on my child's now. If I was concerned about it, I would have tried, but I didn't. I have not been in there.
The question I had from a parent was, why would we not do an opt-in for this curriculum? But we have to have an opt-in to have a Halloween costume or to attend a Halloween party.
Or a survey?
I mean, this sounds like it'd be much more egregious if they were opposed it, but yet we're making a parent sign a form so that they could be approved to attend a Halloween party. That was what was brought up to me, and I had several parents contact me as well.
And, you know, depending on, if are people, you know, there's difference in opinions.
Yeah.
What's acceptable, what's not. So that's why I considered the object.
Well, that's a good point. There's a difference in perspective. I mean, because this is based toward middle schoolers. If high schoolers saw the same lesson, they would have a different perspective. And as me, as a parent, I would have a different perspective. So like you said, it's all in perspective of how you look at it.
That's why I was thinking
And-
that a review would be good to get others, not saying that everything's going to be changed, but we didn't do our duty and have it reviewed over the summer like we were going to. And then so it doesn't mean that everything's going to be pulled. It means that we'd have the committee look at it, the parents look at it and get input and then decide. I don't see the problem with that, but that's up to the board, obviously.
This is kind of funny. I just want to share this. Willa and her friend decide to hang out at a friend's house after basketball practice on Friday to listen to a new album by their favorite band. So when was the last time we had albums? I don't know. You know, and it is that subjectivity. I'm kind of poking fun at it. You know? Yeah. Oh, well. Oh, okay. Well, then disregard my comment.
But I do think one of the videos had a Walkman on the curtain. That is just, I don't think that.
Okay, so first right now we have a motion and a second on the table. And the motion was to send the second step curriculum to review committee and change it to an opt-in. So since we have a motion and a second, we have to vote on this before, if we choose to separate it out into two different motions. So if you choose to, just to be clear,
I'd like to go ahead and go forward with the motion, and if you guys want to disapprove the motion, that's fine. I don't want to withdraw it.
okay, so once again, the motion on the table is to send the second step curriculum to review committee and change it to an opt-in. And we already have a second, so Danielle. No,
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
No. Yes.
motion failed 4-3.
Like to make a motion to at least add the opt-in to the second step SEL lessons for 6, 7, and 8. As opposed to opt-out.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to change the second step curriculum to a opt-in and remove it from a opt-out.
Just a quick discussion. I believe that this should be kept at the lowest level. And yes, there is trust of the teachers and the administrators to do so. This has been brought up. Maybe other people just haven't told what their thinking is on the curriculum, or maybe they just haven't known about it. We have no idea what the videos say. So there is a trust, but hopefully this amount of discussion that we've had in the last half an hour will kind of indicate to our administrators and all of the professional educators, in this room and who have to do with this curriculum, that there is a concern. And we take a look at it between now and when the contract is up and see if it is really worthy and it's where we want to go.
Any other discussion? Okay, the motion was to change the second step curriculum from a opt-out to a opt-in. Danielle? No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 And motion passed 5-2.
I still make another motion to send it to committee, or I guess that's that.
You can.
We're gonna separate them, so.
Is this a challenge of any kind, or is it still?
It'd be a challenge.
Something like that. I fear the mischaracterization of an IF challenge
Just
at
made
this
a
point in
comment
time.
earlier, Carla, that you wanted the staff and the administrators to do a review of the curriculum. This would do that for this particular curriculum. It doesn't do it for all curriculum, but it would do it for this curriculum.
Could we do it like as a work session, like have everybody in one place? And just
That's not-
discuss it?
Our policy isn't set up that way.
That
Can
way
we-
you bring in a burnt.
It wouldn't? If we-
We have a motion in a second. Not yet.
I move that we send the second step curriculum to the committee for a review that would include the parental input.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. What do you mean? Is this a challenge then? Is this an
It's-
IF?
It would be sent to the challenge review committee is what it will be sent to with this motion.
Because I'm concerned about the negativity of the mischaracterization of this. I really am.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it's going to be politicized, especially with the election. I think there was already some of that done before it even got here, but, what I need to do for me, it would be easier to say no, just to keep it. But I gotta look at what's best for the kids, and I know I'm gonna get flack for it, but I just feel, for me personally, it's best for the kids and the parents to have us look at it, and maybe we'll keep it on. It was neglected, it wasn't done, and that's my point, but I respect all of your views here, so that's what I have to say.
You're right.
And-
It was neglected for January 2023. Now we have a new leader and I'll support that.
In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but based on what Carla said and trying to do a review of the curriculum, I would rather see the review done by more parents and administrators and teachers at the building rather than the committee as a whole, because the committee as a whole, we only get 2 parents' views. So
Well, is there an option for that?
That goes against our policy, right?
right
I
now,
agree I agree with you. I want more parental input since they're the ones,
I-
but I just don't know how to do it.
I think if we give a direction to our superintendent that we would like him to review it and look at it and propose an option to us on what he feels best with our second step after either he has time to digest it, I think that would be our best bet.
I think
But-
we do.
I personally feel like the second step, the parents had the ability to choose whether they wanted it or not, so it was literally in their hands. Exactly. I mean, that's why I said to you, an opt-out versus an opt-in form doesn't mean either one to me. As a parent of a middle schooler, I read all my stuff that comes home. I understand that some people might not. So if an opt-in form makes you feel more comfortable with it, I'll vote for that. But at the same time, it's already in their hands. So reviewing it, I think should be something that our staff should do. I think that Marty can propose an option to us to come back, but I don't think it needs to be a challenge.
Because
If-
I think what you were saying, Carla, is right, is leaving it at the lowest level, letting the, like I've said many times, the subject matter experts, the ones that know are experts, looking at the material and making those decisions, our teachers, our administrators, and then parents, getting them involved somehow, and letting them take a look at it. Because I think when we do a challenge or sending it to a committee, what I'm worried is like, kind of like what we did last time, is then it comes back to us and then we end up pulling units, and when the committees and then, and our teachers and our administrators, you know, they were the ones that, I mean, who were saying the opposite too, and we ended up doing something that we didn't leave it in their hands. So that's, I, like you said, that's where I want to leave it, where
And just being discerning, because this is kind of that in between character stuff
right.
that 10, 15 years ago, it was just there. And now sometimes we're replacing poor behaviors with positive uplifting behaviors. And we just need to realize that our students are impressionable at all of their developmental ages. So we need to be discerning and sensitive of that. Because it's not like a core curriculum, subject matter expert, it's really a values curriculum and just. kind
Well,
of a-
but our
getting
teachers are still, I mean, that's.
Oh,
but
yeah,
still, they're the- I mean,
absolutely.
they know
They got that
our
too,
students more than I do. I
but it's
mean,
more,
so-
much more subjective is what I'm saying.
Right, right.
Yeah, thank you.
And what Michelle said, that's exactly the difference, Carla and everyone else. What the difference will be to vote right now to send it to review, that still leaves it open to be pulled once that review comes back, whether the review came back positive or negative. If we chose not to send it to review now, but we instructed Marty to get with Mr. Jenkins and the staff and maybe do a staff review of the curriculum. Or if we wanted to have site council, send it to
That's a
site
good
council,
idea.
that's a great
That's a good
idea.
That's a good idea.
Then that way we are getting a review. But the open-ended of removing the whole curriculum is not on the table. Exactly. I gave people a reason to.
I said that would help membership in site council.
So,
So let me just make smart, just to make sure we're clear about something. We had a parent that came to us and requested a curriculum challenge. If we followed our policy, and we decide to do what Jeff just said, are we following our policy?
Yes, because you
We
can,
deny, we would basically say that we are not going to opt in for the committee review, but you're going to take it.
yeah, so what you would be saying, so anywhere along the line, there could be resolution. So the parent wasn't satisfied with resolution at the or at the middle school. Went to the district, wasn't satisfied with resolution there, therefore asked the board to consider it. So the board's options are, you can send it to committee for review, or you can say, no, we feel okay with what we've done right now. We've taken what you've said under consideration. Here's some other things we're going to do instead, and then we communicate that back to that parent. That makes sense.
As long as we're not violating our own policy. we're good.
I just want to clarify one more thing. If it were brought to the board, or it was brought up in January of 2023, I mean, there just seemed to be a lack of follow through. So I'll clarify that. You know, there may have been a conversation between admin and that person who kind of asked about this curriculum, but it did not come back to the board as a follow through and kind of a resolution. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. We were not really briefed on the entirety of the interchange between the administrator and the parent.
We still have the motion to send it to the committee on the.
that's what I was getting ready to say. So right now there's a motion and a second on the table to send the second step curriculum to the review committee. So we need to vote on that. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Motion failed 4-3.
I make a motion that it go to be reviewed. Sorry,
Would you like us to make a motion on that, or will you, if we instruct you to
and then maybe.
get with Brooks and do a thorough review?
Left hanging for a long time.
Whatever you're comfortable with, you can direct me through consensus to get with
I
Mr.
would like to give the
Jenkins.
Parent, and the stakeholders of time
Yeah.
since it was left for so long.
I think, you know, we're talking about the controversial lessons coming up at the end of November. I think we'd want to
Before the,
do that.
yeah, that would be good.
And, you know, there's nothing that says within the scope and sequence that we couldn't move that lesson if something would get in the way.
If you said for the parental involvement part, you can use the site council, could we open it up to any other volunteers too, or not, or you're just gonna limit it to just those parents, or maybe the ones that signed up for the review, just, I don't know.
I
how you
think-
wanna do it.
Yeah, I think, can I visit with Mr. Jenkins and
Yeah.
get back with you?
Yep.
Rather than give you an answer tonight, let me think through it and talk through it before I give you an answer.
I'd just like to get a good opportunity for
Sure,
any parents to.
sure. And maybe if it's something that we could do as far as them sending in their thoughts, even written response.
Yeah.
Something like that, we could do that.
Survey and things that to the parents.
So, but let me think through it some more,
Okay.
because I might be missing something right now.
And we might find something with those, like I said, those licensures that are on there. I was interested in that you give the parental, the license to be able to look more in depth at things. Maybe we can utilize that for the review.
We're ready to move to old Board of Education business. 8.1 strategic plan update.
Okay. Feel like I'm talking a lot, but we're gonna roll here. So, Miles and Sharon, neither one are present. They are working with the Leadership Academy, actually, on behalf of the district, doing some presentations and assisting with that with some future administrators and current administrators as well. So they're involved with that. I want to bring you up to date on our strategic plan, knowing that in January, we want to come back with a full-blown item by item analysis, but I want to give you where we're at so far, a month and 10, 11 days into this, I guess. Or a couple months now. Okay, July, August, 2 months. I don't have that cop out anymore, do I? Darn it, math. Right, I got 18 months, right? Anyway, so with that in mind, let me just give you a quick one. There's a tracking document that we have developed in regards to the strategic plan. Sharon has done that. It's on a Google sheet, and we can make that accessible to you, and also we will make it accessible on our website as we go along. So that's the idea, that you could watch as we enter information as we go along. So our administration, we actually worked on that at our last AT meeting a little bit, and our principals put in the items they were responsible for and kind of where they were at this time. So we'll make that document a document that can be easily accessible, and not only you all, but our public can also kind of see where we're at in the process. But just to give you an idea so far. Our building leadership teams, our district leadership team and our admin team are the ones who are having the discussions around that strategic plan and updating it as it goes along. So just some highlights for you with operations. There with our facilities committee, we're going to talk about that a little bit, trying to get that committee more active again, especially with what's going to be happening with our facilities assessment that's been done and potential prioritization of projects. We are forming a technology committee that will get input from staff on what technology uses are out there. So the technology committee isn't a board committee, it's a committee that's going to be comprised of staff. So when we talk about what devices are in kids' hands, what kinds of things are there, what do teachers need, that's where that information will come from, so that we have some really good information about what people need moving forward. And it's not decision by committee, but it's gathering information and making sure that we have all the information we need prior to making critical decisions. Our DLTs, BLTs, and admin teams are working together and trying to become more streamlined as a district as we go along as well. Ms. Donald established a SPED advisory council. This is in its second year, and she's working with that, and those meetings occur bi-monthly. As far as the whole child approach, which is another one of your tenants within there, our GVC, our K-8 core subjects are complete and on the website with the exception of 8th grade English language arts, which should be done by the end of the semester. We had some hyperlinks to materials that were kind of wacky on us here in the last couple of weeks, and I know they're working on resolving that issue as well for some of the other ELA areas. Our grade 9 through 12 core subjects are near completion and will be finished and on the website by the end of the first quarter. Our exploratory GVCs will be completed this school year. So exploratory are those non-core areas as we go through that. Next kind of topic, communications, collaborations. We are setting up a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be hosting the leadership class in November here in the district. And so we'll be doing that as far as in collaboration. We have a calendar of events. We've set up a preliminary calendar of events, and each administrator will be updating it through the year just for communication to make sure that people know what's going on in the buildings. K through 8, we've set up a free BIST parenting series, parent corner on our website. So as parents are looking and maybe frustrated, there's information they can go to and look at and have some resources to acquire. Our professional development calendar was updated and shared on the website. Our infant toddler screeners, and I just saw Rebecca run out the door before I was able to give her kudos, are going on as well. And we're publicizing those better to help people understand that that's accessible to them. We're using Greenbush Accessibility and Greenbush Plus, which is an on-demand professional development tool that's out there. The next one is positive culture is the next another tenet. You mentioned earlier, Carla, the mentoring program through Greenbush, and feeling like there's some components of that we're liking so far, and been good. We're going to be meeting with the University of St. Mary's here in the next couple of weeks. We had a meeting originally scheduled, but went from there, and we're going to really work with them on a grow your own program through some alternative licensure and some other things to work with the university here. Now we have teachers who go to Fort Hayes, Pittsburgh State, other places. St. Mary's was just getting approval from the state. And so when they do that, so Miles and I and Sharon are meeting with them to talk about what those possibilities are here. What would be cool about their program is those teachers that would be in that program could be observed by their professors here on site. And and not be kind of a remote situation. So really give them an instantaneous feedback to what they're doing in the classroom. Defining a successful graduate. Where we're at now, these are some pieces around it. I know that there's a bigger component that ultimately is the goal here, but I'll give you some of the things that are going on. There's some positive principal phone calls and student spotlights going on at LHS, positive note cards from teachers to students and families at LMS. We're utilizing Zelle, and then students present to parents at student-led conferences at the middle school. Our Mufasa Leadership Award and Staff Pride Awards, and posting student successes on the school website at LIS. Our Pride Assemblies have been a hit, and that started at LES. And then participation in our Unity Days and family engagement at the Early Childhood Center. The Touch a Truck was a fantastic success here the other night. They wouldn't let me drive one, so. But those are some of the things we have going on there. And I know that that last one, there's some other components that we'll be working on to really talk about what that looks like for a successful graduate from Lansing. That's what I have as far as our highlights so far. I think you'll get more meat as we roll out the ability to kind of see in real time what's happening as we monitor that strategic plan going forward. And then we'll really dig into the meat of it. Kind of when we end the first semester and are going into the second semester to be able to say, okay, we have a semester under our belt. Where are we at now on these items as we move forward?
Fantastic.
All right, any questions or comments on the strategic plan update? Thank you, Marty.
Sharon and Miles deserve a lot of credit.
They're not here, so you get all the credit tonight. No, we know they do a lot, and we appreciate everyone involved, to the teacher in the classroom, all the way up to Marty, to the custodians. It's going to take everyone to succeed on it. So no one has any comments. We'll move to 8.2, which is board member comments. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to have at this time?
I would just like to say that I appreciate the parents that put forth the challenge and the in-depth time that they spent with detailing each item and providing reasons. It was probably 12 pages worth, I think. So I know that that takes a lot of time, and we're lucky to have parents that feel strongly about items like that and can bring that to us. And the same way with the other challenge, I believe that there was a wealth of information. I think that's very important, and I appreciate that.
I'll add on to that. I think that it was very objectively written.
Yes.
There was not emotion in it. It was just straightforward. And you know what? It's not a failure of bringing it up to us, because we spent a lot of time talking about it tonight. And I think that that was very important to get to that level of professionalism and collaboration and discussion. I want to say, I think it's been since last meeting, the Kansas Board of Ed with the Health and Wellness Committee, wasn't that after August?
Yeah.
Okay, that was awesome to go to the State Board of Ed in Topeka on behalf of the Wellness Committee, and certainly Miss Zool was there. And to receive it and just to see all of, this is the whole state, all of the people who were who received accolades for what they do in health and wellness. So thank you, Dr. Call. That was awesome to be able to represent. Amy and I went up to that, and of course, Maureen and Sharon were there. And I would also say I went on September 5th, the KASB had kind of a Region 1 sensing session. They had Dr. Jordan there who heads that up. And that was at, we were guests of USD 453 and kind of listening in on that. Marty and Amy and I were there. The whole state's divided up by, I think, in 10 geographic regions, and then 5 of the largest school districts get representation on such on this as well. So it was really interesting, the Kansas Association of School Boards listening to their legislative, they're kind of gathering the legislative opinions and things that they want to find out. So in November, they'll kind of vote on what their priorities are of hearing from the field, from us, I guess, what they should be watching for when they do their interface kind of up in Topeka between the Kansas legislature and the education committees and listening in on that. So there were some interesting things that came out, some things that I was like, wait, I need to do more research on that. I'm going to go to the November conference, so that'll be exciting to go to that and just kind of between now and then make my opinion be known, representing us. But definitely Angie Stallbomber, I know I sent it to Amy and I think you all, Amy and Jeff, just that he sent that there was new building needs assessment. It's my favorite topic. There were new kind of instructions that came out with that, or they kind of tweaked the language so that we would understand a little bit more as USDs out here in Kansas, what right looks like and what we should be doing. So more to come on that.
Thank you, Carla. Anybody else? No. Okay, we're ready for 8.3 facility committee update.
Can we combine 8.3 and 8.4?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, we'll combine 8.3 and 8.4. Probably. Our facility audit or our facility assessment is on there in two parts because of the size of the file. Obviously, as they went through, I also have physical copies for the board members here as well and tabbed for you. So feel free to peruse those. What I would suggest or recommend to you is that to kind of digest this document, that you use your facilities committee to go through and begin to prioritize the needs in each building. They're prioritized by color, you'll see. So for example, for those who are out there, you'll see green is excellent, good, fair, and poor. And we start with our early childhood, and they start on the outside and work in. So they start with civil and parking lots, and the conditions of that. Then they look at the envelope of the building. Then we get in and we start looking at roofs, we start looking at HVAC, we look at plumbing, we look at all of those pieces, flooring, some aesthetics, other pieces as well. So each building is broken down in this way, and you'll see plumbing, electrical, mechanical, fire safety, all of that. So as we go through this document, what I'd like to do is work with that facilities committee and then bring in that building leader who lives in that building every day with their staff and be able to kind of go through their building for an extended period of time and prioritize, you know, this one might be yellow, but really it's a bigger problem on a day-to-day basis than something that's, you know, in the red, and kind of prioritize in that way. And when we get that prioritization done, the next step would be to ask for pricing on those prioritized items. And then we would get a cost estimate on what those would be. Then we need to get together and do a full board workshop with the facilities committee, bringing that back with those prioritized recommendations. And then the board can start talking about solutions. So that's what I would recommend to you for the process, would be utilizing that facilities committee along with our administrators and prioritizing, and me sending it back for pricing, and then us doing a board workshop just on our facilities.
I agree with that. And then you're gonna work with the committee, right?
Mhm, mhm. And so just to clarify who that committee is in you guys' mind right now, would be great.
Yeah.
Carla, Jeff, and Aaron. Okay, so we would just have to coordinate times that would work for all of us to be able to do that. Diane, administrator building, yes. And then they would come in shifts. So if we spent a half hour with one, next one. Half hour might be selling it short.
I was gonna say, we just schedule a day. Everybody took a sick day.
We, Marty,
So-
did they take a look at the post office nearby building, the one over at the?
They did not.
Okay.
However, I'll give you an update on that.
Sure.
I had a fun meeting this morning with Mr. Rosario's class. His CAD drafting architecture class. And so Mr. Rosario I went over and looked at the building one day, walked through it. His commercial architecture class requires a renovation project or renovation of a building to be able to design it. And so we had some conversations. It was great. The kids, 3 kids interviewed me today and asked me questions about what the vision was for it, and so it was really cool. Ultimately, if we decided to move forward and do something, we would need a certified and licensed person to sign off on all that. But at least initially, they asked if they had some creative freedom, some things like that too. So I'm excited to see what they come back with as far as ideas to do that. So in the vision of it, it was really that off-school site, alternative site for us that could be utilized for students who need a different setting, students who have different life circumstances that would require them to have an alternative setting. To do that where we're in and out and combining it with job experience and other things as well. So that's kind of where we started with the vision, and then ultimately we'll bring that to the board as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's one of the coolest things I've heard of in a couple months. So thank you.
And so your choices then will be, we want to move forward with something like that, or we sell it.
I have one quick question on the facilities. You're probably already doing this, but I just flipping through here, there was a couple red items that could potentially be a safety thing and more immediate. Are you already probably on those? Okay.
Yes, yep.
Thank you.
You want me to jump into the next
Go
one
ahead.
and combine it?
We're ready for 8.5 HVAC update.
Okay, I will coordinate with the committee and we'll get that going as soon as we can. With all of you. So HVAC update. I'll give you a little bit of it. As you know, based upon our substantial completion date and our contract at the end of October. We were hoping for a pick and set on September 18th. Trane has since told us that's not going to be possible. We're still waiting on a little bit of equipment. But again, as far as what leverage we have based on the substantial completion date, we don't have a lot, but we're trying with our best efforts to push that along. Fortunately, as I look forward, our weather is a little better. LIS is the one we worry about often, that if we get above 90 degrees, that our systems are going to struggle. We did put temporary units in each classroom in the 5th grade wing of LIS. The 4th grade wing is working well and cooling well, but the 5th grade wing is the challenge. So with a compressor and the condition that it's in and one being down, we're able to push some air into there to cool the rooms if we're not above 90. If we are above 90, then we've got to really utilize those temporary units. The other ones are functioning at this time.
Questions or comments on the HVAC update? Okay. Not. Ready for executive session? I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance and personnel changes pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA. I'm inviting Superintendent Kobza into that meeting, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 9 o'clock. A motion and a second, Danielle? Yes.
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 Motion passed 7-0. I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance of personnel changes pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under coma. I'm inviting Superintendent Kobza into that meeting, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 9:30. All in favor?
the older I get, the higher that number gets. You know,
I move that we approve the following new hires. Angela Slater, junior class sponsor. Larry Hogan, boys basketball coach. Jason Barnes, assistant baseball coach. Kylie Connell, sped para. Sharon Burns, freshman class sponsor. Angela Dennis, assistant scholar bowl. Jill Fink, PT early childhood provider. Heidi Sanford, lead teacher / preschool. Braden McKee, LHS assistant wrestling coach. Robert Denny, grounds and facilities. Craig Darrell, sped para. Dean Armstrong, bus driver. Jaden Worth, sped para. Christina Becker, sped para. Amanda Shoemaker, PT sped para. Jason Barnes, art club sponsor. Lisa Rodriguez, LHS nurse. Deborah Hicks, food service. Randy Freivogel, assistant boys basketball coach. Angela Fields, food service. Jamie Oberg, FT sub. Preston Schmitz, business and marketing teacher. Lance Marks, assistant track coach. Mariah Kimball, bus monitor. Natalie Riggs, sped para. Ken Hernandez, custodial. Ronald Common, custodial. Jeff Stebbins, assistant DECA sponsor. I move that we approve the following job transfers. Stephanie Merritt from assistant DECA sponsor to head DECA sponsor. I move that we approve the following exiting employees. Trenton Hildebrandt, sped para. Veronica Doan, sped para. Roberta Polly, MTSS intervention aide. Madeline Lane, sophomore class sponsor. Constance Slavens, sped para. Jeff Stebbins, high school assistant track coach. Tasha Buselt, sped para. Jessica Beck, MTSS aide. Clayton Frimmer, grounds and facilities. Roxanne Dees, kitchen staff. Annette Rodriguez, para. Michael Strand, para. And Charlotte Hodges, para. A motion and second to approve the hires, transfers, and exiting employees in a second. Yes.
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 Motion passed 7-0.
Oh, sure.
Okay, with that, we're on to information items and announcements. 10.1, our joint work session with the city of Lansing and USD 469 will be held October 19th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the city hall. 10.2 is the KSB annual convention, and it will be November 10th to 12th, 2023 in Wichita. Does anyone have any future board meeting agenda items?
For the joint work session, we're compiling a list of discussion topics that we'll share with them. Is that right? That we're ready for adjournment. Make a motion to adjourn. Yes.
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 Motion passed 7-0.